Nebraska is trying to bring in a top 20 class in the cycle of 2025, but there are a couple current Husker commits who are looking to flip elsewhere. So in today's video, I'm going to go over who these guys are, what schools they're looking at, and will they stay committed to Nebraska. So really quick, I have a massive recruiting update for today. Make sure to hit that like button if you're optimistic about the future of Nebraska football. I know I am. And hey, if you're new to the channel or if you're a returning viewer, make sure to subscribe. I post daily Nebraska football content and recruiting updates just like this. So if you're a die-hard fan of Nebraska, make sure to subscribe. I promise you will not regret it. But without further ado, let's get into the news, talking about some current Nebraska commits who are looking at other schools, and it's safe to say they are on flip watch. So before I get into these prospects, I want to preface with this. I know flipping is a controversial topic in college football, to say the least, but just because these guys are looking at other schools doesn't mean they're going to decommit from Nebraska. This is modern day college football, folks, right? And everybody does this. Even though these guys are committed, a lot of prospects still visit other schools. Doesn't mean they're going to flip. It doesn't mean they're not loyal. It's not a judgment on their character. We forget that Dylan Raiola, our current quarterback, was committed to Ohio State and committed to Georgia. He flipped twice. Now, that was not an indictment on his character, clearly. So don't say it's an indictment on these guys who I'm about to mention. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. Yes, these guys are visiting other schools. Yes, they could decommit. It doesn't mean they're a bad kid. It does not mean they're a bad culture fit. That's just the way college football is nowadays. So with that being said, let's get into some of the current Nebraska commits who are looking at other schools. Jeremiah Jones was the first one, and I've talked about him in the past. Of course, he got a Missouri offer about 2 months ago, and ever since then, he's took 2 visits to Columbia. Really liked his time there, loves the coaching staff, loves Coach Drinkwitz. What's interesting about Jeremiah Jones, I told you guys this for months, he's my favorite Nebraska commit right now. I believe, he is a riser. He's a guy who can really play every position, just like Michael Terry can. And for that reason, I predicted him to go up to a 4-star rating. He has went up to a 4-star rating. And Missouri, of course, is now trying to come after him because of that. Now, one thing to note, Missouri is recruiting him to play tight end. Nebraska is recruiting him to play on the defensive side of football. It looks like Jeremiah Jones prefers to play the offensive side. But Missouri just picked up a tight end commit yesterday who's 6'8". So they just got a tight end commit. Maybe they're going to back up of Jeremiah Jones now. But it looks like, and he's still talking with Missouri. I still like Nebraska's odds here. I think we're still going to sign him. But Missouri has stole Nebraska commits in the past. They got Quan Lacey from last year's cycle. Hopefully Nebraska can fend him off here for Jeremiah Jones, because I think he's a stud. He's a great kid. He's a gamer. Just everything you would want from a Nebraska football player. So that's the first one, but there's a couple others who are taking visits elsewhere. Bryson Webber is the second guy I want to talk about. 4-star corner commit for the Huskers. Now, he committed to the Huskers back in about July, but he's been very adamant since then. He's been very open about it that, yeah, he has been visiting other schools. He recently was interviewed by my man Caleb Sisk over there at Husker Max, and me and Caleb were talking about the situation. But, Bryson Webber is a guy who, went to Baylor for a visit recently. He said that he's likely going to visit TCU again. Again, he's been just very open about this situation, that, yeah, he's still considering other schools, that they're going after him very hardly. But he said this about Nebraska. Not only is he going to visit for the Wisconsin game in a month or so, he said that Nebraska has definitely made him feel comfortable and confident in his commitment. Communication has been the biggest part. So that's what he said, word for word. Again, Bryson Webber is a guy who's keeping his options open. Okay, he wants to stay close to home. That's why he's visiting Baylor. That's why he's visiting TCU. But I think he really likes Nebraska. And again, if I were to predict, I think he stays with the Huskers. But again, he's still doing his due diligence, and I think that's okay. Last guy I want to talk about in today's video who is on flip watch, who's visiting other schools, Malcolm Simpson is a interesting name here. 4-star defensive tackle committed to the Huskers in the summer. And when he committed to Nebraska, he said that Nebraska made him feel like a priority, that they believed in him. Now, a lot of these other schools, they didn't believe in him, but Nebraska did. So he's always had that tight-knit connection with the coaching staff, that affinity for the program, and he's been balling out this season. I talked about him in my video about a week or so ago, that he's just been playing at a different level, that this guy's a 4-star freak, and he might be in the mix to play next year. So Malcolm Simpson's been playing very well. And guess who has started to look over and say, hey, maybe we should get on that? The Texas Longhorns. He was recently in Austin for a game day visit. Now, Texas has not officially offered him. That should be noted, but he did visit Texas. So again, guy coming out of that state, it'd be very hard to turn down if you were him. Again, staying home, but I still feel very confident that he's going to stay with Nebraska. He's very vocal on social media. I mean, his Twitter page, he's always talking about Nebraska, retweeting fans, saying "Go Big Red." So I still feel good about Malcolm Simpson. Again, another guy who's just doing his due diligence here. Like if you get offered by Texas, yeah, of course I'm going to go on a visit. Just check him out. But I still feel like he is going to stay with Nebraska. So all three of these guys have offers from other schools. Other schools are recruiting them very hard. But for all three, I still feel like they're going to stay with Nebraska. I don't predict them to decommit, at least not yet. But Nebraska needs to do a couple things to ensure they will stay in this 2025 class. Number one, you got to stay in contact. That is not something I'm going to be worried about, right? Matt Rhule is constantly texting these guys. The offensive coaching staff, defense coaching staff do a really good job of communication, and they make these players feel valued. They did that throughout the summer, throughout the spring. They're continuing to do that now. So you got to keep that up. Number two, win football games. It's very simple, especially for a guy like Malcolm Simpson, especially for a guy like Jeremiah Jones, who's considering, schools that are in the top 15, top 10 pretty consistently in Missouri and Texas. You've got to win. You've got to get up in that top 25 rankings. You got to be in the mix for the Big Ten. It's very simple, and it's really hard to turn down schools who are, like Texas, who are in the, race for the college football playoff, and Nebraska isn't. So you got to win football games. I told you guys all the time. That's what it's going to come down to a lot of times in these recruiting races. And last but not least, NIL, you got to bump up whatever you're offering some of these guys, just to kind of seal the deal a little bit. Last year, Nebraska lost two guys in the 24 class. Kwan Lacey, 4-star running back, went to Missouri, and then 4-star defensive tackle Carlin Jones, he went to USC. Both of those players are on the record saying they flipped because of NIL, because the other schools not only were winning, but they were offering them more money to go elsewhere. So Nebraska, at the end of the day, it does not hurt to bump up the NIL. I'm not saying that's number one on these kids' lists to go places. Like that's not the thing they care about the most, but it doesn't hurt. So whatever you're offering them, bump it up a little bit. But all right, those are the three players I'd watch out for as potentially flipping. I feel good that they're going to stay, but again, it's something that I want to inform you guys about. And last thing I want to mention, this is just college football recruiting nowadays. That's how it is, especially with the transfer portal, with basically the reason why these kids commit so early nowadays instead of committing on signing day is because they want their spot. They want their spot in the class, because the transfer portal comes and it comes quick. And a lot of times, if you don't commit in the summer, you're not going to have a spot on any of these teams when it comes to December. So a lot of times these guys will commit, but they won't be 100% committed. They'll still try to find another school. They just want to make sure they have a spot at wherever they're going to land. So I hope that makes sense. That's basically how college football recruiting is going nowadays. I don't blame any of these kids for keeping their options open. They're all great individuals, and I think they're going to stay with Nebraska. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. What are you thinking about Malcolm Simpson potentially going to Texas, about Jeremiah Jones potentially flipping to Mizzou? Let me know in the comment section. Hey, if you made this far in the video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And as always, folks, go Big Red, go Matt Rhule, and see you in the next one.